Hi, Joyce. Ruben, hey, how you doing?
Hi, Happy New Year.
Excellent. Okay, well, we are official. We are underway. So, welcome everyone. Welcome. Hello from a poet's point of view, an MLK tribute. And this is the kickoff for the series. I'm Sister Joy, Prince George's County Poet Laureate. And we're excited because we're here to honor one of my icons, one of my heroes, the Reverend Dr. the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is a celebration that will include myself and three other powerhouse poets. I'm speaking of the young poets by the name of Orville Walker, Marissa Michelle, and Saini Cisse. And you're going to hear all about them as we proceed throughout our celebration. And it is indeed a celebration because Dr. King is one most worthy of celebration. As I said, this is the series kickoff. So while we opted to have the celebration coincide with the kickoff, it is one that will happen every month on third Saturdays from 1 to 3 p.m. And we invite each person who's with us today to come back and join us on third Saturdays and let us hear from you in the chat and as other opportunities avail themselves. Now, this will be something that will be both a poetry presentation and a discussion, as indicated by the theme from a poet's point of view. So you will be hearing our poetry, but you'll also be getting to know us intimately because we will be discussing how do we come to present these poems? How do we craft these poems? What is it that makes the message significant to us? So every month I'm looking forward to having a dialogue, and that means that the audience has to weigh in as well. So the way that you do that is through the chat. So as you're listening to the poetry, if you hear a question, well, if a question comes to mind based on what you're hearing, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll come back to that once we get to that portion of the program. But we want this to be an interactive exchange, and so that means that it is something that allows everyone to participate. And I just caught my breath as I looked over and I saw Grace Cavallari in our audience. Oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so very honored. Grace, please say a word, please.
It is, you are a beacon of light. You have been for years, and today is no different. Every year you do this event, most times in person, as I recall, with
Yes.
music and dancing. Joy, you have filled our life. Thank you for this. I'm honored to be in the audience.
Oh, thank you. And for those who don't know, for whatever reason, Grace Cavallari is the Maryland State Poet Laureate. So
And you're the world's poet laureate.
Grace, thank you. I'm so very, okay, now that I'll get settled back down, But it is my honor to present these three featured poets, Orville Walker, also known as Orville the Poet, Marissa Michelle, who is the 2020 Youth Poet Laureate, and Saini Cisse, who is the 2021 Youth Poet Laureate. And this is for Prince George's County, both Marissa and Saini. So you're going to be hearing from some of the great voices in Prince George's County, and we are honored to kick off this celebration of poetry from a poet's point of view. Our first poet, let me tell you a little bit about Orville Walker, who goes by the name Orville the Poet. He's no stranger to anybody in Prince George's County, and I guarantee you well beyond Prince George's County. He was born in Tacoma Park, Maryland, by the way of Jamaica. Orville is known for his charismatic, confident, and goal-driven mindset and his passion for poetry. Now, using his pen to get him through life experiences, Orville uses his passion for the arts to raise awareness, speak vivid truths, and uplift his community. Before there was poetry, there was passion for playing basketball with hopes of playing in the NBA. However, he soon found that his path was indeed poetry. And his way of giving back to his community was through spoken word. I'm going to stop there because I'll let his poetry speak more for him, and I guarantee you it will. Uh, uh, Orville is very much a family connected poet, and when you hear his message, you'll see that thread of family running through it. And of course, as we're coming up for Black History Month next month, the theme for this year, for those who are maybe preparing to write something for that occasion, the message is the Black family. So I'm ahead of the curve in presenting to some and welcoming back to others. Orville Walker. Orville, could you bless us by greeting us and sharing your first poem and telling us a little bit about it?
You always introduce me like I can't help but smile and cheese on the other end because it's always an amazing introduction. Like I'm like, I have to be my best self. All right, here we go. So my name is Orville. Okay, yeah, my name's Orville, and that's not just today, that's tomorrow as well. That's my real name, and it's spelled just like Orville Redenbacher, like you're probably thinking. So I have the privilege of sharing what I love with you all. And we also have the privilege of commemorating and honoring a man who's done so much. And without his sacrifice and sacrifices, we wouldn't be able to move in the capacity we move in. So first and foremost, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. And so my first poem is entitled Passion, right? And Martin Luther King, if he was anything, oh, somebody, can you mute your mic? I feel like somebody watching TV. That kind of threw me off. Appreciate it. So what if we know Martin Luther King was passionate about everything he did, right? And I pose a question in the beginning of this poem that I'm sure he had to ask himself. All right. So bear with me. This is entitled Passion. Passion. What do you do when your passion doesn't pay your bills? What do you do when your passion doesn't pay your bills? I mean, what container does your passion really fill? See, I feel fulfilled whenever I step up and pour out my heart and soul on the mic, but some audience members still leave empty like, I never spilled anything. So I'm steady thrashing through obstacles, trying to overcome my own doubt because the Lord told me my passion is the one thing I should never try to live life without. He gave it to me to use, not refuse. So I keep it in mind when it was one-sided reviews like, this to do with the locks again. Oh, girl, I bet he don't got no romantic pieces. He think he better than us because he be talking about Jesus. See, no, I just talk. But if you choose to listen, that means I've already been aligned into my correct position. I don't welcome opposition, but I will stand with the truth. And see, my passion is the general, and them alphabets are my troops. And when we get in formation, words are formed. Through my passion, I am reborn and shown what my true purpose is. See, if I just rhyme a lot and I don't have a message, that's worthless to me. If I don't inspire you or leave you with something to dwell on, I'm not taking my part in heightening your senses. And no super elaborate rhyme scheme here. The poem is for y'all. I desperately want you to get it. Because somewhere along the line, I think artists stop spitting pieces of messages and really spitting pieces for themselves. Taking part in the game, but there's nothing to gain, so why are we playing? Grabbing hold of the proverbial arrow and releasing it at high velocity at the target. And in this world, everyone has something to sell, and there will always be a market. See, some people are selling fish, while others are selling chicken, but we're giving the truth. But there's no one left to listen. And it seems like the very same people we try to uplift are the very same ones trying to bury our God-given gifts, taking our syllables and dragging them through the mud. We see those hate-filled stares, but like Dr. King said, we must combat them with love. And it used to be a cliche to me that it costs nothing for you to pay attention to me, but it's crazy to see what poets, pastors, or motivational speakers do with adjectives, nouns, and verbs. Someone asked me the other day what my passion was. I said, I hope it's obvious. It's spoken word. So that's that first piece right there. if you appreciate anything I'm putting into the atmosphere, feel free to follow me everywhere but home. Follow me at orvillethepoet.com. That's spelled ORVILLETHEPOET.com. Also, Orville the Poet, THE, not DA. We try to teach kids how to spell Orville the Poet on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and Facebook as well. All right, so this next piece, and then I would love to take questions and start a dialogue as well. This next piece really touches on, because I feel like you can't mention Martin Luther King without mentioning Black history. And Black history is American history. Whether they try to exclude it or not, it is. It's all a part of this place. So you can't say MLK without saying other names as well, because this brother was just a juggernaut. I recently found out, and this is bad, but I'm very transparent. This brother went to college at 15. This is a educated brother. This brother was amazing. So this piece is an ode to those that have come before. And my bid for being part of that Black History show. Sister Joy, this is gonna bring memories back. I feel like this is the last time we did this, that I was a part of it in person at the library when we spoke about it the other day. But I wish I could put bubble bath in Harriet's tub, man, until she felt no more pain. Then I would shine Malcolm X's shoes so good as if the bullets never came. Then I would tap George Washington Carver on the shoulder and carve him the women of his dreams. Then I'd personally thank County Cullen for picking up his pen and tell him that because he did, riders like I were able to begin. Then I'd ask Arthur Ashe when he was swinging his racket, did he see Jesse Owens dash across the finish line and all the racket he caused? And Hitler hated that brother so much, he even mentioned him in his memoirs. Then I get a tour of the entire scenery via the brothers, the airmen of Tuskegee. Then I would high five Martin Luther King. Then we would sit and watch his dream unfolding on DVD. And of course, I rewinded my favorite, Muhammad Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Watching him go through Nigeria and Ghana, seeing all the freedom fighter banners visiting people like Mandela. And then we would finally witness a time where music rekindled your spirit and your soul was reborn. And we were sitting watching Oz Lena blew like a horn, and it was lights, camera, action when Mahalia Jackson took the mic. Then we would witness a time where Black minds were emerging out of their cocoon. Thanks to the diligent work of Mary McLeod Bethune and Harry Belafonte, we later laughed and cried to the words of Bill Cosby. We were always impressed with Denzel Washington's work with the youth. And we thank God every day for Isabella, because she freed Sojourner so we could see the truth. And looking at Obama and the journey he took, and the feeling of pride as a racist, he put his hands on the book. The greats from the past and the efforts well spent. Who thought one day we'd ever see a Black president? Great things are yet to come, and the past is evidence. Black history isn't a day or month, it's a mindset. So that's that piece, y'all. Sister Joy, you remember that one?
I totally remember that one. And I'm sitting over here getting chills from both reflecting back and receiving it anew. Thank you so very much. What a way to kick off this wonderful tribute honoring Dr. King. I know he's smiling right now because of your gift. And I hope, let's see, I see so many wonderful chats of just praise and acknowledgement for what it is. Good history lesson, brother. Grace loves that one, Orville. Okay, so many, just please do pay attention to the chat. I want to, some of the answers may be obvious. Welcome, Jermaine. We see that you're with us. So very happy to have you with us. There's going to be basically two questions that I pose for our guest poets. And the first question for passion, what was it specifically that prompted you to write that poem?
So what specifically happened, And so real quick, before I even get into that, I just want to say shout out to these other young poets that are featured on here. It's awesome to see, you know, people always talk about the future. I don't know, these kids, I don't know. I look at the future and I see it, and it's in great hands.
Yes.
It's in great hands. Poetry, this art form is in great hands. It's in great hands. And if you just listen to the radio for your art, then that's on you. But if you want to really listen to it and get to artists and different art forms and poets like really spitting substance, you need to check out people like Sister Joy. All right. If you're just listening to the radio, I'm not going to tell you what the radio is, but I think we all know what the radio is. You know, I mean, if you're just going to these popular, you got to search this art out. All right. There's people really doing it and really care about it and are willing to sacrifice countless nights, sleepless mornings and days and afternoons like Sister Joy to cultivate it. All right. Sorry. So how this specifically happened. Sorry, I just have to give you flowers every time I see you. So passion, I started writing that because everything you hear me talk about in the poem is honestly exactly what happened. I had to ask myself this question. What do you do when your passion doesn't pay your bills? Right. Artists, I know y'all can feel me. Entrepreneurs, anybody with a business, I know you can feel me. If you've ever taken a risk on yourself, while, you know, no shout out to any, no, not degrading anyone that has a 9-to-5. I also have a 9-to-5 as part of some other things, right? But when you take a risk to step out of the norm by yourself, others are going to question it because it's different than what everyone else is doing. So I had to ask myself that question. What do you do when your passion doesn't pay your bills? Hey, you want to be an artist. This ain't making no money right now, though. What are you going to do? So if you notice in the poem, I never answered that question. In 2009, when I wrote that poem some time ago, maybe 2009, 2010, I started to answer it with my life, with my actions. I said, hey, what do you do when your passion doesn't pay your bills? You keep working it until it does. And I'm proud to report that in 2021, well, some time ago, this has been true now, but it does pay some bills now. So the answer really is, you know, keep going until it does. That plan B might take away from your plan A.
Okay. Well, certainly, and you're right. We all of us who take this seriously, what we do, and understand it's more than words that rhyme to sound fine. We understand that this is some serious work that we're doing, and there's a purpose beyond self even. So I thank you for stepping in and helping to fill that void where the need is so great. The second question, why did you choose this particular approach or the structure of the poem to convey your message? You know, we can write poetry in so many different ways and present it in so many different ways. You have that incredible gift of recall that I don't, but when I see it done so beautifully is the way you do it, I just have to smile and receive it in my spirit, because it is truly a blessing to witness not just eloquence, not just word mastery, but it is something that your passion shines through. It's something that the gift that was given you is made so very evident that you had no choice but to do this. So as to the approach and the actual form of the poem, how did you come up with that for that particular poem?
So for that particular poem, I purposely went that direction to make it as relatable as possible. I not only talked about things that I've experienced, but I know a lot of people that have experienced. You know, everybody, that's why that first line, I actually didn't have that first. And after reading it or writing it and reading it, I was like, no, this has to go first, because immediately people will relate to this. What do you do when your passion doesn't pay your bills? Boop, gotcha. You know what I mean? So I wanted to make it as relatable to the audience I was trying to connect with as possible. And the audience is entrepreneurs, artists.
Okay.
So
Well, because time is going to get away from us so quickly, I want to thank Orville for his presentation. And if time permits for him to come back a little bit later, I know he's got to head out for another engagement, but we also want to capture some time with our 2020 Youth Poet Laureate, Marissa Michelle. And she too is on a tight schedule for today. We're just blessed to have each of these young poets with us. And so, Orville, first of all, thank you. Um, Make sure you actually put your email or whatever contact information in the chat for those that might have joined later, and they can pull that up. And for each person that wants to save the chat, the three dots at the bottom, the ellipses, by clicking on that, you can save the chat and get anybody's information and come back to it later. So you can save the chat by clicking on that little box that has the three dots, which are called ellipses. And if you click it, the word more is there, and then it says save chat. So that's how you do that just before you leave. So don't do it now, do it just before you leave, unless you're about to leave. So Marissa, welcome, and thank you for joining us. I am excited to, oh my gosh, every time I have been in your presence, I am just absolutely awed by your word mastery. And the poetry that you share is so rich in culture, is so beautiful in conveying your story. Let me tell a little bit about you before I invite you to actually speak. But Marissa Michelle, the 2020 Youth Poet Laureate for Prince George's County, is a second generation American of Haitian and Puerto Rican heritage. She is, as I said, the 2020 Prince George's County Youth Poet Laureate, and she's an avid poet, a digital artist, and a musician. In 2020, she was the recipient of multiple national gold medals for poetry in the prestigious Scholastic Arts and Writing Competition, as well as an American Voice nomination in the Scholastic competition. She is also the recipient of the 2020 Diaz-Madison Poetry Prize. She is currently a junior at Sidwell Friends High School. I'm going to stop there. I know she's tight for time. Marissa, welcome. Tell us, what is it you will be sharing today? And then tell us something about it. But first, let's hear maybe two poems from Marissa Michelle.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. So thank you so much. So first, to preface this poem, like a short one, or a short preface, is to me, both of these poems are about hope and persistence. So the first poem that I will share is called The Birds Left Us. The birds left us in the hours when shadows dance, a smooth and rhythmic waltz over our naked streets and cracked sidewalks. In our waking moments, the first thing we notice is the silence. Emptiness hanging dry in the air like clothesline laundry. Exhaustion imprinted on our bones, sleep still hovering above our eyes. Our bodies sway like dandelions in the infant morning. Yesterday, the children carried the wind on their backs and drank sunlight under the ceiba trees, left footprints in the coffee-colored soil. Chaos follows the birth of the new day. It ignites in our hearts and spreads like wildfire. The sweet memory of guava rests on my lips, which now ask my ancestors for answers, guidance, forgiveness. My grandmother clenches her bony hands around the Bible, palms wrinkled and calloused, a testament to aging. She devours holy words with the hunger of a starved animal, spits out psalms like papaya seeds. We press our hands, delicate as paper cranes, to our temples, our heads bowed beneath the weight of fear or hope. The sediment forces hollow valleys into our knees and pushes train track lines into our legs. I wonder where the birds have gone. I thought the world would end in darkness, yet the searing sun's rays leave no escape from the light. Night returns and falls upon us like a crashing wave, ushering in a mysterious tide. What has the moon seen? The all-knowing, her silver glow, a vanishing ghost. The beat of my heart The beat of my heart is rhythmic, da-dum, 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 the start to an unfinished symphony. Escaping from my throat, a warbled cry, too ugly to be song, too bold to be the humble notes of morning. I feel a brush against the cage of my ribs, a flapping, a forceful push, something like feathers, something like wings. So that was my first piece. And in this piece, to me, the birds symbolize hope. And as when I was writing in reference to this event, when I think about Martin Luther King Jr., one of the first things that comes to my mind about him is hope. I feel like that is so central to his life, to the hope for a better day, a new day, the next day. And so that's what I was thinking as far as why I wanted to share this poem. And at the end, maybe there will be a question about this later, but at the end of the poem, to me, the bird is within us all. That hope is within us all. So even when it feels like it is gone, it is still there. My second piece is titled On Revolutions, and it's a villanelle. So it's a certain type of poem, like it follows a certain poem structure. And here it is, On Revolutions. You cannot douse our flames, nor strike down our desires. Night's embrace, dreams fuel, love such strong power. From ashes, peace will rise from cleansing fires. Blood-stained gravel in our streets, our plight is dire. Past our weakest moments still draws near the final hour. You cannot douse our flames, nor strike down our desires. Bodies die, but spirits cannot be cut by wires. Out of infertile soil will grow precious flowers. From ashes, peace will rise from cleansing fires. Beat us down 1,000 times, we will never tire. We will stand again, know that we will never cower. You cannot douse our flames, nor strike down our desires. Every sunrise, another brave voice joins our choir. Tyrants must face defeat. Victory is almost ours. From ashes, peace will rise from cleansing fires. After the storm, sweet sunlight calms and inspires. Unfinished, we seek out evil to disempower. You cannot douse our flames, nor strike down our desires. From ashes, peace will rise from cleansing fires. Thank you.
Let me unmute. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, in particular, you gave us some backstory on the first poem. So that helps us to understand why you spoke on, birds as hope. And I love that because of the freeing nature of birds that they represent and what hope is freeing to us. So now, the fact that you chose to present this second poem in the format of a villanelle, tell us about what prompted that decision, and tell the audience, for those that don't know, what a villanelle is.
Okay, so firstly, a villanelle is a poem that follows, like a good example would be, do not go gentle into that good night. That is a very famous example of a villanelle, but it follows a certain structure. So as you heard, I repeated quite a few lines throughout the poem, and within a villanelle, certain lines, it's hard to explain, but certain lines will be repeated within the stanzas, as well as following a certain rhyme scheme. So 2 lines at the beginning and end, like they rhyme in each stanza. So, and the lines in the middle will rhyme. So.
Okay. And for those that would like to, please Google villanelle and become familiar with it. It's a tool that can, frankly, help to craft your poetry in a very solid manner that is received well by the ear. Sometimes we flow with words in a way that we're looking to how can we convey our message in a cogent manner, but also an artistic. Villanelle is very established as a writing form, and it gives us direction. It really does. So thank you for presenting villanelle to our audience, and I hope some people will introduce themselves to it and maybe even give a stab at writing a villanelle. I have to acknowledge, I'm not one to write villanelles. When I see them, I tend to pick them apart and say, okay, this is here and this is here. And on the page, you can do that. And that's what allows us to understand the form, in any form poetry. So thank you very much for that. Now, let me see. Tell us about the actual, what prompted that poem to be born.
Okay, so for this poem on revolutions, I wrote this poem last week. It is very new. And what was on my mind was the storming of the Capitol, that domestic terrorist act. Like, that was huge on my mind. And I had seen a video of someone who had come out of the Capitol who was maced, I believe, and she was saying it's a revolution. And I was like, no, that's not a revolution. That is pathetic and disgusting. But I, being Haitian, when I hear revolution, I firstly think of the Haitian Revolution. So that was largely on my mind. But also, for why I wanted to share it today was, if we think in American history, what is a revolution composed of? Millions of voices, singular voices coming together. So many small actions that may seem small but are really so large. Rosa Parks saying no, that's a tiny revolution. Like, I just feel like overall, when I was composing this piece and writing it, I wanted to think about how powerful a revolution is and sort of breaking it down and what that means. So that's why that was my source for it.
Okay. Now tell me, is there any place that our audience can see your poems in written form? Is that an option at this time?
Not these poems at this time, no.
Okay. Are there other poems available online any place that,
Yeah. I can share links.
Okay, so please do in the chat provide that information, because your word mastery is so exquisite, and you're for someone, and I won't even say of your age, I'm just gonna say for someone with your gift, your work is so impressive and so inspiring, and I thank you for sharing those two pieces that you have today. I'm hoping that there'll be opportunities for our audience to dialogue with you. So in addition to including the links, if you can provide, it's up to you, but whatever means of contact you would like to do, we very much appreciate that. So
definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I know you're on your way out, but I don't see any specific questions. I just see accolades in the chat. So make sure you, click on the ellipses and save the chat so you can see what folks are saying about you and come back to them. There may be opportunities for dialogue later. But thank you again. Again, for those who may have joined us late, this is Marissa Michelle, the 2020 Prince George's County Youth Poet Laureate, who just completed an incredible year of service for Prince George's County teens and Prince George's County all across the board. She represented us in many forums, and as you heard from her introduction, has been recognized for her literary excellence. So Marissa, continued success, all the best, and I look forward to staying in touch and hopefully continuing to work with you in literary circles.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We are now moving on to our third poet. And I really do hope that we have some questions that come up in the chat, because at this point we don't have any questions. So that's not a good sign. We want this to be interactive. So we see, okay, let's see. Yeah, love, please share any contact information. So we do have a request for your contact information. And so we will now move on to our third poet, our third guest poet, after which I will be sharing some of my poetry as well, and hopefully hearing from some of you of what your views are on Dr. King and what some of the issues are that you think are relevant today as we celebrate and honor Dr. King as well. So our third and most prestigious of poets for this celebration, all of them have been incredible, and I hope you agree with me, but we are just so excited to premiere, because I understand this is her first official appearance as the 2021 Youth Poet Laureate of Prince George's County. And I'm speaking of Saini Ceesay. She is our just brand new incoming Youth Poet Laureate for Prince George's County. She is a student at Prince George's Community College, where she has an arts concentration and is a recipient of the Dual to Degree Scholarship. She is an alumni of Eleanor Roosevelt class of 2020 and Joe's Movement Emporium Creative Works class of 2020. Saini was also a 2020 Youth Poet Ambassador representing Greenbelt, Maryland, and the winner of the 2020 Words, Beat, and Life Slam session, becoming a part of the DMV Slam team. She has performed for Brave New Voices Youth Poetry Slam. She's performed at the Kennedy Center and the Smithsonian Institute, and has been featured in several virtual slams and open mics during COVID, this period of COVID-19. Her poetry touches on topics such as mental health, their Blackness and identity as a Gambian American, gender issues, and social injustice. She seeks to find and build community through her poetry and to help others to be encouraged to write. Aside from poetry, Saini also has interest in sewing and photography. And she works with the digital media collective known as the Media Buru. And I hope I'm saying that right. She can correct me when she comes on momentarily. She also volunteers with the Prince George's Mutual Aid as a way to help better her community. Please welcome, for the first time in her official capacity, Youth Poet Laureate of Prince George's County for the year 2021, Saini Ceesay. Welcome, Saini.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction. Oh my gosh, I have big shoes to fill, Marissa. I love your poetry so much. Like, you're so amazing. And Orville, you did a great job as well. I'm so happy to be here. Yes, as you know, my name is Saini, and I have two poems for you today. They are slam poems. I'd like to explain them after each piece, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the first poem that I want to do for you all is titled Hero. In the beginning, it was Black women who birthed the world, so naturally it seems now we are still ones to make a world move the first time. I witnessed the ground shake. Love was the force, it's the power to make the super come naturally. Black women create the spaces to breathe in a world that tries to take our breath away, can turn a heartbeat to a sanctuary, a home between arms, full meals produced between palms, who built spaces just for us to be full on our own company. And now there are tables for people who know flat silence and forgotten, built on all the things in us that could not die. Black women taught me that love too is a revolution. And here is where I find my heroes. Black women are thought to be both myth and miracle, but maybe the hero just comes from resilience and is found in the chemical X that is injustice. I'd like to think it's something that happens from the inside. It's birthed in a small cell until it multiplies over time, until there is nothing else to do but stand up and fight. And this is how we get our leaders. It's Black women who birth movements that imagine the world, the sky wide enough for everyone. Hero is Coretta, Chimamanda, Fumilayo. Winnie is the women in my life who grew me from the ground up, so I know of all the greatness I can be, and it's because of the women who came before me. And I wrote that poem after reading about Black women across the diaspora who have birthed movements for Black liberation, especially in Africa and also in the US, such as like Coretta Scott King or like Winnie Mandela, and just like the women who have worked both beside and birthed movements of their own, because I think a lot of times we kind of center the men in these movements when we talk about like civil rights and Black Lives Matter and things of that nature, especially like even the Black Lives Matter tag was created by a Black woman. So I wanted to take the time out to highlight those women who create movements of their own and who are also doing the work of creating spaces for us to be liberated. And even just like everyday women in our life, I think that love is a revolutionary act, and loving yourself as a Black person and loving on your people is also a form of that revolution, because of all of the things in our society that kind of try to keep us away from loving ourselves and wanting better. Um, I named the poem Hero because I kind of went with that word choice and imagery, because I also think that sometimes Black women are attributed to have like supernatural powers. Like, you know, sometimes we say things like Black girl magic, or like when it's election time and Black women, you know, save the election again. A lot of times people would like to sing praises by like elevating us to like a supernatural place. And it's really like Black women are regular people too. And I think a lot of the amazing accomplishments just come out of having to take on so much because so much is thrown at us. And yeah, I just wanted to take that time to center Black women in their role in this movement. The next piece that I want to do is titled Consume, or On Black People Gone Ghost to Brutality, and it's another slam piece. And America asks us to swallow a headline whole before rolling a clip of a Black man being murdered. It hits us and doesn't ask if we are ready, but uses and extracts our angry, leaves our bodies windless before the weight. As we watch George's life leave his, and like this, they tried to teach us that our lives don't matter, make our pain accessible with a click. They see our body and not our being, so we riot. Angry as a siren sweeping across the country, burning down buildings we built, and the president calls protesters thugs. Like the police aren't the country's deepest gang in full riot gear, the media will gaslight us before putting gas into our eyes, and the president calls protesters thugs. Politicians asking us to choose love, like sometimes love ain't accountability. The cost of Black life still weighed in mouths across America, and I realize my existence is political. We riot for Black people gone ghost to brutality, and they ask, why are you burning down your own cities? As if to put building over body, as if we can get insurance claims on those we've lost, put clay to ether, and like that, they'll be alive again. I wish our magic worked like that. The country wraps itself in smoke, and the news stories are equally foggy. If you're looking for the truth, the media won't tell it. Call our riot, spill milk, the Target won't sell it. We riot for the Black children who gotta swallow headlines with their cereal, in a country where it's political for Black people to want to keep the air in our lungs. And they say, why can't you be like MLK? They say, you ain't gotta do Gucci like that. They say, violence makes us look bad. But no, violence makes them pay attention. We already look bad to them. That's why we're out here in the first place. Remember that they built America on Black bones, and they will never be able to repay what they took from us. To be Black is to be born a Black hole, but we're Phoenix, can birth a dream out of what's never been. I mean, this isn't the first time we've had to do it. It's been a while and we're still going through it, but no, the revolution is ours to build, even if we got to do it with our bare hands. And this particular piece came out of the Black Lives Matter riots, and just like, it was a way for me to release my emotions, because it was like just a high time of and like anxiety and being overwhelmed for me. And I felt like a lot of people were trying to delegitimize the movement and what was happening, and kind of like separate themselves. Like there was a lot of people condemning like the looting and like the destruction of property, and it kind of took away from the fact that, you know, people are dying, and Black people are faced with a lot of violence because of the system, and it's built into the system. So it was just like a lot of different varying opinions, and just talking about the protest as if it's not legitimate because of how it's done, and like you should be more like leaders such as MLK and, you know, be more peaceful, and that's the way to be heard. But it's also like people have been doing things calmly, and even MLK himself said that riots are the language of like voices unheard. And I think that it came about in that manner because people did not feel heard. So it was kind of a way for me to respond to all of the folks who were kind of just like trying to take away from what was happening and get people to be silenced. Like sometimes, especially like when I find myself in arguments, it's a little bit harder for me to articulate and say everything that I want to say. So in this poem, I was able to respond back in a full capacity and kind of just be uninterrupted as an attempt to try to get people to understand what was happening.
I am so awestruck. I first of all, thank you, Saini, for your revolutionary work, the work that you are doing to wake folks up, to let them hear the truth. I see even our Maryland State Poet Laureate says you got her excited. Yes,
Hey.
and that is true of all of us. Your words. I was over here trying to make a few notes. I realize my existence is political. Black people want to keep the air in our lungs. I mean, it's just so, you know, Black women are regular people too. So much of what you say these are truths that are undeniable, that that others need to hear and realize the truth of them, of your words. So thank you for the gift, the powerful gift that you will be sharing throughout the year, but certainly that you shared here today. I know that one of the things that when I was thinking about this tribute to Dr. King, Dr. King spoke often, his work sought to address three urgent problems: the problem of racism, the problem of poverty, and the problem of war. Certainly this country is at war with itself right now. The poverty is undeniable. We have lines and lines of people in cars trying to get food. We have children that, I mean, there's poverty that is economic, but then there's poverty that's everything from educational to spiritual to, I mean, it's just, don't get me started. But the racism is the core of everything, the problems that we have in this country. And you so eloquently address those through your poetry. I thank you for that. Now, for those that want to stay in touch with you, how can they, is there a website? Is there an email? Is there a book or publication that, and I'm sorry I didn't ask Marissa and Orville about the availability of product, but I know you're just brand new as the Youth Poet Laureate. Do you have anything yet in print? And I know that part of your award as being named the Youth Poet Laureate for 2021 is that you will now be published. So is there anything yet in print?
I don't have anything right now on display, but all of those types of things are incoming, especially as I think about, you know, how I'm going to present myself as Youth Poet Laureate. So those things are in the works. If you want to keep up with me and what I'm doing, where I appear, sometimes I even just like go to different like open mics on Instagram. You can follow me on there and I'll type it into the chat.
Okay. For those of us who aren't tech savvy enough to follow on Instagram, how about on Facebook?
I have a Facebook.
You're not on Facebook. Okay. Well, and this is the challenge for some of us on the other side of your generation. We want to stay connected. So please have Patrick, and I'll say a few words about Patrick shortly, but have Patrick to share information with the rest of the world that's not on Instagram, so that we're not left in, you know, in the abyss without any clue of what it is, the great things that you are doing. So now, for those that don't know the Youth Poet Laureate program of Prince George's County is managed and coordinated by two gentlemen. I'm speaking of Patrick Washington and Neville Adams, who manage and I think they created Dialect of Prince George's. And that is now, I think this is year 6 for Dialect of Prince George's. Each year there has been a new Youth Poet Laureate representing the teens and the youth community of Prince George's. And Saini, you have certainly come on with fire in your soul, representing in a way that lets us know that the program is continuing to go on to bigger and better. And it's just, we thought we couldn't continue after Marissa because she was so, oh my gosh, she's so power-filled. But we are certainly at ease knowing now what you shared today. Dr. King would definitely embrace your words. There are many that have been waiting to hear from the youth community and what you and Marissa and before Maijan, there's so many opportunities for the young voice to be heard. And that's what we want to do, certainly through the Office of the Poet Laureate of Prince George's County that I had. We want to make sure that we provide opportunities for you and for Prince George's County youth and teens to have a voice. So it is absolutely my privilege and honor to have you as premier guest on today's Tribute to Dr. King, kicking off our new series, From Poet's Point of View. And this, as I said earlier, this will be a monthly series. And just because you're not featured doesn't mean we don't want you to come on board. And so, you know, surprise us. We love pleasant surprises when we see that whether it's a laureate or a poet who is doing great things, wants to be connected and share poetry and information. And that's one of the reasons why we created a little bit of a different format for the year 2021. We will always share poetry. The Office of the Poet Laureate will always share poetry and provide opportunities for that. But we also want to have that voice of the poet heard. What, you know, sometimes people have the misunderstanding that, oh, well, that person does that because they're a poet, and they feel like there's this separation that does not allow the experience of poetry to be relevant to them. We want people to get inside of poetry and get inside the mind of poets so they can understand and hopefully come to pick up that pen themselves. And, you know, you don't have to be as eloquent as, you know, a Saini or a Marissa to pick up a pen and express your views. But the reality is we all edit our work. So what starts on the page may not be, and in most instances is not what the audience or the public hears, because we craft poetry. We work with that message to allow it to be delivered as and received as broadly as possible. So tell us a little bit about your writing process. When you receive something in your spirit that you know this is going to be a poem, is there something that triggers that, okay, I need to stop and pay attention to what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm receiving, or is it something that you seek out and develop independently? Tell us about your writing process.
I like to think a lot of times I write out of like frustration or irritation with something happening around me, and poetry is kind of how I try to make sense of things. I like poetry a lot because it gives me the chance to really work through my words and craft. I tend to be like, I'm kind of coming out of it, but I was always a very shy person, and sometimes I would find myself like being spoken over or kind of like ignored. So through poetry, it kind of gives me the opportunity to speak about the things that I think and feel, and like just present those thoughts in a way that is uninterrupted and also in a way that is like hopefully enjoyable to people to listen to, so that they can be like more receptive of what it is that I have to say. In terms of my writing process, it tends to come out of like having an intense emotion or like a need to speak on something, I try to write to things that I feel like are being overlooked, or just to try to provide a different perspective than what I hear around me when I don't see my own voice represented. So that's what I like aim to do with my work and my writing. You're on mute.
Thank you. I was trying to make sure my bells and whistles over here didn't interrupt you, but thank you for reminding me. There's a comment in the chat that says, Saini is talking about Black Lives Matter. It would be a good question for all of the poets to address. How has the Black Lives Matter movement affected your poetry? Would you care to address that?
Okay, I think that the Black Lives Matter movement for me has really increased my desire to write poems that speak to hope and about liberation, and kind of to amplify that message so that we can be heard, and to reach a better place, and just to encourage people to do what they can within their communities and even with themselves. I think that like loving yourself, especially as a Black person, is a revolutionary act. So we all have different roles to play. I'd like to think that poetry is one of the ways that I can help to contribute to that, alongside like volunteering and trying to be part of the change. So
Okay.
yeah, I just
Okay.
want to be like an extra voice.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna ask Marissa that question as well. But before I switch over to Marissa, I want to ask this other question that I see was posted here. Does writing a poem like We Riot allow you a way to reclaim your voice in a position of fullness, to stand in your full identity? So,
Definitely, for sure. It kind of helps me to, I guess, feel confident and like be able to speak out in a way that I feel like when I perform my poetry, it kind of there's a different side to me that comes out, a more confident, assured voice, and yeah, I think that saying things that are energizing also helps me to continue to believe in that vision of like a better day and being a part of that change.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We're going to come back to you, but I know Marissa's going to jet out of here soon, so let me capture her before she leaves. And the question was with regard to Black Lives Matter, Marissa, how has the Black Lives Matter movement affected your poetry?
Well, as far as Black Lives Matter, those three words are so powerful and so important, especially matter. And I feel like in my poetry for the past 3 years, that theme of being important, of Black people mattering and being important, is so central to a lot of my work. So I feel like with or without the movement, that meaning has always been in my writing. And so with it coming in the past maybe year to more popularity, I feel like it has highlighted that aspect of my work a lot more, but I feel like it has always been in my writing or a part of it.
Okay, okay, thank you so much. Let's see, I see there's a comment, speaking like Sojourner. I believe that was for Saini. Thank you. I think Lady Di posted that. We definitely appreciate it. Now, with regard to the poetry that you are currently writing, I know you said one of the pieces is so much, well, you just wrote it this past week, but make sure. Okay, just wanted to make sure you didn't have a question, but that was a comment. With regard to the celebration of Dr. King and the issues that are very much in the forefront at this time, with the inauguration coming, at this time with what happened last week, at this time on the precipices, we're going to celebrate Black History Month next month. What would you say for the non-poet would be a way to self-express? And that is for you, Marissa.
Okay, I just
I'm sorry, I didn't specify.
Okay, so before I leave, for me, the best way for a non-poet to self-express. Well, I'm a very artistic person in general and not just in writing. So the best way that you feel like you can connect with yourself, with your emotions, whether that's listening to music or painting or drawing or doing, like, to me, those are ways that I connect with myself that are not poetry. So I feel like the best way is just think about, you know yourself best and better than anyone else could. So think about what makes you feel most like yourself and just do that more. And that's probably the best advice that I could give.
And I totally agree with you there. Everybody has to find that way that allows them to feel complete. If it's gardening, if it's building something, constructing something, but oftentimes it involves both us physically, mentally, and spiritually. When we get that alignment within, I think that's when we can find self-expression to be its fullest manifestation. So I encourage certainly everyone to consider picking up a pen. But for those that only enjoy hearing poetry and feel daunted by the prospect of trying to write poetry, find something that allows you so much satisfaction that you want to share it. So much satisfaction that it's beyond just containable within yourself. And that, I think, is part of the key that will allow more peace within us individually. And when there's peace within us individually, then there can be peace within us as a society or as a community. And ultimately, I think that's what Dr. King was trying to convey, and so much so that he gave his life for it. I thank you, Marissa, for what you contributed to today's celebration. We're going to go back to Saini in a few minutes, but I actually have a poem that I'd like to share. And this is kind of a rework on a piece that I started a couple of years ago. Let me drink a little water before I start, because it's kind of a long piece, but not extremely. But it's titled The Mighty Roar. The Mighty Roar. Brisk rustling winds pull us from the lull of status quo. It has become the luxury we can no longer afford. Society has become a storm that manipulates and devours. This cannot be our legacy. Injustice, purposeful or otherwise, must not be allowed to reside inside hollowed chambers. Do you not see? Evil consumes merely by existing. This chokehold must be broken. Has it not dawned upon you? We are the ones that must bring change. We are the change makers of which our forefathers spoke and for which our foremothers prayed. Do you believe we have no charge, no debt for tomorrow's child? This charge calls us to lift our voice and one another. We are blessed with such abundance, and now weighs us down. Look around and see our downfall. Bounty has become a crown with thorns, which prick and trick our minds. Let it not become the barrier that blocks, but be the blessing that balances belief with grit, hope with determination, strength with discernment. Listen as the rustling winds of this storm echo our ancestors' song. Their message is our message. Hear it loud and strong. They say, come together in purpose and peace. Leave none behind, for each is needed. Let us sing our ancestors' song of hope for all of humanity. Sing, not softly, but with a mighty roar. Alone, one voice is lost in the storm, but together we are heard. We become the thunder that speaks, that makes real the equality we seek. the humanity that gives, not takes life. Let us roar above the rustling winds that lift us and all of humanity to rightful and prideful places that honor life and embrace equality. Hear the heartbeat. It welcomes us, guides us, calls us to change and save one another. Let us each be part of the heartbeat that creates the mighty roar. Thank you. That is a piece that, as I said, I started it a while ago, a couple of years ago, literally. And as I was reflecting on what message would be relevant today, I felt that the core of that is still as relevant as ever. And I believe it's relatively timeless. But we talk about, how can we allow individual actions to connect with others in a way that empowers not just us, but our community, our culture, our society, because it's so needed. We have this, in so many instances, such bounty. So many of us are so comfortable, and we don't understand the need to provide for our sister or brother that's, hungry in ways beyond physically. So I'm hoping that when we share our poetry, we're feeding one another. I'm hoping that when we share the messages that are significant to us, it's more than just our message or our plea, because for me, oftentimes poetry is a plea for someone to hear a message that can enlighten and lift, empower, inspire. So many people have differing views, and we cannot expect the world to have our views, but we can convey our views to the world in an effort to share understanding. And if poetry does nothing more than that, then I think it will have served a worthy cause. So with regard to sharing messages that build bridges, can you speak, Saini, about how do you feel your poetry can build bridges, and is there a particular audience that you're speaking to beyond teens? Because we know you're speaking to your teen peers that you think can help. I'll just keep it wide open. Help.
So primarily, I think my poems I write for Black people, and just in like the experiences that we share and kind of like those feelings that come out of existing as a Black person. But I also think that people who are not Black have something to gain from listening to my poems, because it can kind of give them an insight into a small insight into like my experience as a Black person as I go through this world and what that is like. And yeah, it can lead to more understanding.
Okay, well, thank you for that. One of the things that, it's daunting to think about how far do we presume that our poetry can reach. But the reality is, and we saw it last Wednesday, there's such a divide, there's such a gulf between perceived realities. And while we may feel that our reality is truth, there are persons on the other side of the divide that feel that their realities are equally truth.
Yeah.
Somewhere there has to be a way to connect the two, to at least create a dialogue. So I'm hoping that there are persons perhaps that can share, even after, like this event today is being recorded. And I'm hoping that people will share the video, because it's going to be on Facebook, but it's also going to be on YouTube. I'm hoping we can share the messages that are presented in this tribute to Dr. King with persons of differing views, because that's the only way we can create the bridges, that we can build the bridges that allow the conversations that ultimately can bring the tensions down to the point that voices can be heard. And without voices being heard, nothing can change. So I'm very much hoping that there will be opportunities for each person on this Zoom today. Please consider sharing this Zoom conversation with family and friends, perhaps with persons that have totally different views, but that allows the views of this audience to be heard, and perhaps allow some conversations to ensue as a result of it. If poetry can be the power that we believe it can be, then it has to start with those of us who embrace our message and honestly and forthrightly sharing it, both with those of like minds, but also those who are not of like minds, not in an antagonistic way, but in a way that simply conveys what we're feeling from our hearts. And maybe we can hear from persons in other camps. I know it's asking a lot, but I believe that we can do that through poetry. As poet laureate, I have to believe that. And as youth poet laureate, I believe that you might share that view as well. Okay, so let me look over to the side here. I see a lot of things in the chat. Oh yes, there's another event, another tribute coming up. Let me take a moment. I'm doing a PSA right now. There is going to be another tribute to Dr. King on this coming Monday. It's going to be on Zoom as well, and it's only in darkness can you see the stars. And I'm going to be one of 3 poets being featured in that. I'm a member of a group called Collective Voices. And Brenda Bunting, I believe she's still on this call, is going to be hosting that event. I'm going to take a moment to step away from our scheduled features. Is Brenda Bunting still with us? Let me see. I'm going to switch to gallery view.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, Brenda, I'm going to give you the floor and ask if you could please say some words about your upcoming event that you very generously invited Collective Voices to feature.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm very excited to give a poetic tribute to Dr. King. I just think that his legacy continues all throughout, time up into this period. And I just think it's so important for poets of color to be aware of the impact that giving tribute to in other words, we are the ones that do it. Nobody else is going to lift up their voices and give homage to our leaders like we will. So I just think it's so important. I think it's so beautiful when I hear poets of color, young and old, and everybody just really embrace Dr. King and remove him from more stereotypical circles and just really expand upon his legacy. Like you just said earlier, Sister Joy, you talked about how it wasn't just, civil rights, but also he talked about the war and he talked about poverty, all of these things. He is such a luminary. And I do think it is I just think it's wonderful that year after year after year, we continue to lift up his legacy. So I really consider it my honor to be able to host that event. And I'm so happy that you all as Collective Voices will be there to do that as well. And I just hope everyone here can zoom in. You can zoom in and zoom out for however little or long you would like. So thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And I see that you have posted the link, including the registration and everything right there in the chat. So if anybody is interested, please do check it out. Thank you, Brenda. I'm very happy to see you with us today, and we look forward to being with you on Monday at 8:00 p.m. So
thank you. And this program is wonderful. All the poets have been remarkable, and just love you all so much for speaking your truth. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I'm going to come back to our our featured poet, Saini Cisse, and ask, first of all, Saini, do you have another poem that you would like to share? I'm going to, another one, but I'm going to share mine later. But, you know, as the newly appointed youth poet laureate, I want to capture as much time with you as I can. So do you have another poem that you care to share?
Okay, I'm actually working on releasing a small collection of poems that are related to PG County that I would like to share.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna read a poem from there that's called Questions. And I wrote it, it was inspired by Jamal May's poem, There Are Birds Here, which he wrote for his hometown, Detroit. So I wanted to do one to write to my hometown, PG County.
Okay. Prince George's County.
Yes. Questions I have for those that live outside of PG County. When I say Prince George's, do you imagine the boy hoping to shoot his basketball far enough for someone to tell him he can be something? You think of offbeat rapping, making SoundCloud cloud out the sound of hunger and wanting. When I mention the crabs, do you see the bucket too? Clawing back the wings of those who wish to fly, and not just a really good meal that invites the family in and the neighbors in this poem. Maybe the crack is just coming from the shells. When I say he beats his feet, do you think it's for a beat down, or do you see the dancing too? Limbs lifting and twisting. Does your mind's eye allow you to see his joy? When I say there is swamp water, do you see us as the lotuses and lily pads, or do you find us under the water gasping, submerged in a mud we want to rise from? If I told you about the red line, do you see blood separating us from places we're told we don't deserve to exist in, or would you just think that somebody is going home? Questions I have for those that do. When you tell the youth they are going places, do you only mean across a court or a field or around a track, because our gym floors are shiny but the textbooks are old with dust? The last time I saw black skin in my history book, it was a slave ship diagram, lasted less than half a chapter. They can pack our history as tightly as they did our bodies. I learned more about Russia and the shifting shapes of Europe's borders than I'll ever have use for. On the unit test, they asked about the benefits of the slave trade, called it an exchange of goods, a triangle, equilateral, said our bodies were worth their weight in guns and alcohol. Our classrooms don't have windows to look out of, but the Friday night lights coming from the football field are blinding. When you call us excellent, is it only when we wear suits, shoes shined, head up, shoulders back and covered, or when we get out of our bed and manage to show up in something other than pajama pants or bonnets and do-rags that hold hairstyles not ready to face the world yet? When you say PG is black and excellent, show our all black everything as proof, like black administrators and principals and police, is the profiling supposed to burn less because it's not bleached? And I guess I want to talk a little bit. Thank you. You're on mute.
Okay, please speak about that piece before you go on.
Okay, so beginning the poem, I wanted to speak to some of the stereotypes that people who are not from PG County kind of have about us, because we are a predominantly Black county, and the kind of hold negative connotations and stereotypes about us. And I wanted to kind of speak to like the things that we can also enjoy here. Like, it's not always like sadness and tragedy. I wanted to talk about like the beauty of like living here and existing here, but then I also wanted to include a call to action. I think a lot of times, like, especially when we are faced with opposition from people who want to talk down on our county, and we kind of like to reply in a way that I guess elevates us, but in that we kind of use like things that relate to white supremacy to kind of use that to uplift us, and that's why we are good and that's why we are valuable and worth something. And I wanted to kind of challenge that idea, and also like kind of have a call to accountability on how we can be better as a county, especially like in the education system. I was thinking a lot about like how we're not really taught a lot of Black history in schools, and I think that that's something that's really important, especially the fact that so many Black people live here, and that's kind of something notable and historical and that we should be more honoring of. Um, and also like just putting um, more like belief and like paying attention to all the other great things that are happening in PG County outside of like, you know, the athletes and the like basketball and football stars who come out of PG County, because I think there's so much more to that. And I just wanted to speak to those things like artists, you know?
Yes, yes. Thank you so very much for that beautiful piece. I look forward to seeing that presented, possibly hanging somewhere in Prince George's County, you know, and the City Hall, certainly in Greenbelt. But you know, these are things that we have to take the lead on and ensure that, you know, the opportunities will not present themselves. So we have to pursue them, and we cannot expect somebody else to do that for us. So thank you so very much. Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. And I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. We have a shy audience. We have poetry enthusiasts, but not questioning poets. So I don't see any other questions. So how about I'll share another poem, one not so long this time, but this is a newer piece. Yeah, this is one that I wrote as a result of last week at the Capitol. And it's titled, Now Some See. Now some see, if only for a moment, what life in the South was like for slaves who faced daily the hunting dogs, the haunting feeling of being found when a hunter holds your life in his hands. Now some see, if only for a moment, what Blacks face today when walking alone at night in Southern streets or in urban parks or gated communities, when choices and lifestyles mean you're threatened or attacked each and every day. Now some see, if only for a moment, the pain of knowing you've done no wrong. Your only sin is you are the they that some say will take away their rights and way of life, when all you want to do is live peacefully, equally, and free. Now some see. And I wrote that, of course, after witnessing you know, the insurgency at the Capitol building. And my heart genuinely went out to those that were seeking shelter and boarding doors and hiding under desks and just praying that the, you know, those who were on the hunt did not find them. And the reality is that was reality every day for slaves. That is often the reality for Black folk that are just trying to live. But this notion of what happened in those 2 hours or shorter is just a speck of what had been all but considered, you know, well, that was then. But no, it's in our DNA. And the reality of having to explain that when people say, just get over it, you can't. It doesn't work that way. It is a part of who you are, handed down from generations. And it's not just handed down, it's still being lived. So Ask Trayvon. That was now Sumsey. And I'm going to ask you if you have any question for me, Cisse, or any of our guests in the chat. Or Cisse, did you have anything that you would like to ask either me or persons that are attending our tribute to Dr. King?
I have a question for you, Sister Joy, about what it was like for you to come into your voice as a poet, and like how you were able to use that as a way to create change, because you have done a lot for our county, especially in terms of the arts. So I just kind of want to know like what that journey was like for you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I didn't begin as young as you. I was very much coming late to poetry, although my very first poem I did write at the age of 14 when Dr. King was assassinated. And hence, much of my poetry does address the issue of social consciousness and injustices in this country. But I never wrote another poem for 20 years because it just never dawned on me the relevance of what I had done in creating that poem. And literally, it was a classroom assignment. Many times people write their first poem when the teacher says, write a poem. Well, my English teacher didn't say write a poem. She said, I want you to write about what it means for Dr. King to have been assassinated. And I chose to write what ultimately became a poem. And the poem was, the authenticity, the originality of the poem was challenged by my classmates and my teacher, because at the time I wrote that poem, I was the most quiet introvert that you would have ever experienced. You know, the last thing I would have ever done was to write a poem that started out with hate, hate, hate. That's what some teachers teach. Hate, hate, hate. That's what some preachers preach on the streets, in the schools, even in our homes. The children get so angry, the streets they start to roam. And the poem was a burst from a dam that had been within me. And the students, you know, my classmates and peers, they were like, she didn't write that. That's no way. She, you know, that's not her. She sits up here quiet every day. We can't even get her to raise her hand in class. And I just, you know, I had to literally get my parents to speak with the teacher to confirm that I had been working on something and this was in fact my work. And so that was the first time I had ever written a poem, and the school newspaper published it. And so I was very honored by that. But again, it was out of character and I didn't stay there. For one, I really didn't get much support, except that the school did publish it in the paper. And it goes to, you know, who I was and who I was not, that I didn't take that as a sign to say, hey, there's something happening here, you know, pay attention to that. So 20 years later, I'm working as an adult, and a colleague says to me, do you remember what you were doing when Dr. King was assassinated? And of course, that was the question that that will be the question that is posed 20 years from now about the insurgency on Capitol Hill. People will say, do you remember where you know, what you were doing when? And so it was that moment in time when my colleague asked that question. And I remembered this poem and I shared it with her, and she said, oh my, you've got to do something. You've got to share that poem, share that story. It's, you know, people need to know that young people were affected by Dr. King's assassination as well. And I thought about it and I decided, okay, I'm going to share the poem with my community newspaper. And I felt, well, I need to kind of put it in context. So I wrote an article to accompany the poem. And I got so much response that elementary schools were contacting me. Neighbors were contacting me. They were, the schools were wanting me to come in, as were the libraries, to come in and talk to young people about Dr. King. And they were saying, well, we want you to come and share your poetry and talk about Dr. King. And I'm like, well, sharing my poetry is sharing my poem. is in one. And they couldn't believe that that was the only poem I'd ever written. And it was finally the brick they hit me upside the head that said, there's something that you missed, pay attention. And then I started seeing the world through a different set of lenses. So everything then became a poem. I mean, jury duty, birthdays, everything. So while I was starting to, speak at schools just on that one poem, I was literally building a portfolio of poetry. And that is what opened the floodgates. I would send it to more newspapers, send poetry to more newspapers, and they would publish them literally in the newspaper, in the magazines. And people were like, well, how are you getting your work published? And I said, I'm sending it. And they did not, they didn't get it because they'd been fighting for years to get their work published. So I take that as, I'm a woman of faith. So, God knows that it takes a lot for me to get the hint. So he opened the doors wide, and that was my verification, my validation that this is what I'm supposed to do. So I have embraced that reality since then. And, I've now gone on to share many poems and to create opportunities for other poets, because I know what it's like to be the quiet one, the hesitant one who will not step up and speak up. So my advocacy is born through that reality of knowing that if nobody ever says, yes, this is for you too, then there will be those who don't realize that they have a voice that is deserving of being heard. So it doesn't stop for me. So thank you for that question. I do want to.
There was a lot that I could relate to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, what did you say?
There was a lot that I could relate to in your response. I definitely know what it's like to be like the quiet person. Like the first time I shared my work, like a lot of people were like, I never heard you speak so much, and like be surprised at like what came from me. So yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
I am posting in the chat my website for anybody that would like to visit my site and see more of my poetry. Certainly my books are available through the website as well. But if you have something that you would like to ask, even after today, you can reach out to me through my website and let me know how I can support what it is that you would like to see happen through poetry. There are opportunities for leadership in Prince George's County for poets. So I'm looking to connect with poets who are doing great things. Some of the poets I've already reached out to, but we want to create an atmosphere of empowerment through poetry in Prince George's County. We want to build bridges through between cultures and generations in Prince George's County through poetry. We want to encourage and promote literacy through poetry in Prince George's County. These are the things that I believe can make a difference in our communities and even in our families. And when we have a richer experience because of the arts, then I think it allows a more inclusive experience where not just the community of teens over here and the community of seniors over here and the community of Latinos over here and the community of Asians over here, we can come together in ways that fortify one another and ultimately create that great, our county council executive who believes in Prince George's pride. We want to foster that through the arts in Prince George's County. And certainly with the Office of the Poet Laureate comes under the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council. And there are so many different expressions of art that the Arts Council manages and supports. So if you have not, and I'm speaking to everyone now, if you have not at this time been onto the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council website, please do so. Let me put that in the chat as well so that everyone can visit certainly the Poet Laureate page on that website, but all of the Arts Council avenues of support. Let's see, pgahc.org. So the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council, and that's pgahc.org. By visiting that, we have a film office for persons who want to get into film. We have certainly the photography, the visual arts, there's just something for everyone. There's resources that are available. There are grants that are available. There are artist registries where you can register to be informed when arts events and grant opportunities and events are coming up. All you need to do is register with the Arts Council and you'll get on the mailing list and be able to be informed about what is happening. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share what we're doing in Prince George's County at the Arts Council, but specifically, I want to connect with as many of you as possible to know what you're doing with your art form. And I know that I see Dorothy Rice, who is with us from Richmond, Virginia. Thank you so much, Dorothy. And by the way, Richmond, Virginia just named its first ever Poet Laureate. And Roscoe, what is Roscoe's last name, Dorothy? Do you remember? I think it's Dednam.
I think it's Burnham's.
Okay.
I don't know him, but I'm impressed with his art, his artistry. Disappointed that I wasn't selected, but there will be other times.
Absolutely. Do you know what the term of office is for that position in Richmond?
I think it's 2 years.
Okay, okay. Well,
I got that impression.
I'm in year 3 of my 3-year term here in Prince George's County. So I'm looking to do as much as I can within these last, well, this is January. So my term actually ends in September because I was appointed in September of 2018. So for those of you that want to connect with the Office of the Poet Laureate during my term, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just very pleased to be connected with Dorothy, who I met through a family member in Richmond. And we've now stayed in touch and shared many virtual poetry events. And I definitely encourage you, Dorothy, to stay in your position of leadership. And who knows, Richmond may yet be blessed by what you offer as Poet Laureate in the future. I'm speaking it into existence.
Thank you. That's what my cousin did. She said, "You are our Poet Laureate."
There you go. There you go. And these are the things that happen. So oftentimes, people wait for things to happen by somebody else's initiative. And we can empower ourselves by taking on the mantle. We don't have to wait for somebody else to give us permission to be great. I absolutely believe that if I had not just chosen that this is what I want to do with my life, then I probably would have never stepped away from my 9-to-5 almost 15 years ago now. And I would have been just going crazy with, pushing papers for the federal government. I was just, about to go crazy. But when you believe in what it is that is within your spirit and you act on it, look out, world, because there's nothing that can stop you. Sometimes you do have to pace yourself, but that's a part of learning. And, time management is probably one of the last skills that some artists ever learn. So we definitely have a lot that can be done, but please, everyone on this call, don't wait for somebody else to give you permission to do what's already in your spirit to do. So if ever there's a message that I offer, that would be it. And Sayani, thank you for what you're doing in your position of leadership. Is there any particular initiative that you would like to speak on that you're about to embark on through dialect or otherwise?
So one of the things that I want to emphasize as I go on as Youth Poet Laureate this year is one, like supporting Black artists and young artists who are still trying to, you know, find their way, and just believing in them, and also like supporting them where you can. Like if you're about to, like, if you there's something you know you need, then consider like buying from Black artists first, if possible. And also, one thing I think is really important is supporting Black people while we are alive. So like through things like donating to mutual aid programs, I think is really helpful, because they help to get people the resources they need with like a faster turnover, and we don't really like scrutinize too much about like who is deserving of something. And I think that can help more people to get what they need in a more efficient way. Because I think sometimes, especially like when we deal with the reform sector, there's a lot of back and forth, and it can take some time. So I think it kind of fills that gap of people are struggling now and they need help now, and doing what we can to take care of each other. So I would strongly, I guess, recommend or ask for you guys to donate to mutual aid programs and things of that nature, and just supporting the people around you. If you know that they're trying to get their art out, or they're starting a business, like just think about them first before like shopping somewhere else, depending on what it is that you need, because there might be someone who can help you out with that, and it would mean a lot more to them than to like shop with like a big store or something of that nature. So
Exactly.
those are things. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. We definitely have to support our artists, but all entrepreneurs that are um, acting on the spirit that is within them. I want to take a moment to invite to the for Janique Mucklevane, who is doing great things with Prince George's County teens as well through Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And there is an event that she's going to be a part of that's coming up on Monday. Actually, it's a series. Janique, are you in a position to speak about the MLK event that poetry and posters? Janique, are you still with us?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Could you speak about the event that you'll be helping to get underway? I think it's Monday is when it kicks off.
Yes. It's a volunteer opportunity for young people to get their volunteer service hours. We'll be doing a poetry session and a collage, a group collage for the poster session. The orientation is on Monday. It's at 4:00 for the poetry part, and then at 5:00 for the poster part. So you just have to go to pgparks.com and look up for the volunteer under the volunteer tab.
Could you put the link in the chat for us so that persons who are interested or know of other teens who might be interested?
Sure.
If you could post that, that would be great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's see. I see Ann Harding Woodworth is with us also. Ann is going to be featured coming up. Well, Ann, first of all, welcome. I don't think I actually spoke with you earlier today. So could you unmute and tell us about the Cafe Muse event that I think it's Cafe Muse that you'll be one of the featured along with a couple of other poets. Can you tell us about that?
Hey, this has been terrific. And you look beautiful, Joy. Absolutely beautiful, great color on you. Yeah, it's on Wednesday, Wednesday at 7:00. It's Cafe Muse. Let me go to my other computer and I can get or I'll put it in the website.
Yeah, put it in the chat, right.
In the chat, I'll put the link.
Right.
And it's going to be, I'm reading with Hiram LaRue and with Hayes Davis.
Yes.
But two absolutely fantastic local poets.
Yeah, well, actually
So-
three. The three of you are three absolutely
Ah,
fantastic
thanks.
poets. Absolutely. So we're
Yeah.
very, very happy to share that information. Um, I see my good friend Jermaine Lewis is with us online today as well. Jermaine and I go back many, many years when he was managing at events at Prince George's, what is it, Clary Smith Performing Arts Center. So Jermaine, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate your support, and it's good to see you. Okay, let's see. Are there any other announcements? We're coming down to the close of our event today. Bernardo Taylor is with us, one of the members of Collective Voices, as is Lady Di. The three of us will be in that event that we talked about earlier today, during today's program. Only in darkness can you see the stars. Bernardo, is there anything you would like to share briefly here during today's set? If you could unmute. And maybe he's stepped away from his computer. How about Lady Di? Lady Di, is there anything that you'd care to share briefly?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a wonderful program. I'm really looking forward to Saini. I rated her amazing on the day that she was selected. So happy, and we love Marissa all year long. And for all the people that have been missing Poetry Extravaganza at the Martin Luther King Library, join us Monday. Just come on and join us. You can just join us from your home and hear Collective Voices celebrate our Reverend King.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sister Joy, for all your work.
You're very welcome.
And you do look exceptionally beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. My goodness.
That
Okay.
color is gorgeous on you.
Well, sometimes it pays to go back and dig in the vault and find something you haven't had on in years.
Yeah, but you did a job on that head wrap too.
Oh, well, God is with me.
It's so good to see a lot of lovely, dedicated poets here today too, and I appreciated this program. I'm so glad. I'm sorry I didn't show my face today, but I'll be showing it on Monday.
Absolutely, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I definitely see. Let's see, Michael Newhart. I don't believe I've met Michael previously. Have we met previously, Michael? Could you unmute and tell us a little bit about how you came to be with us today?
Yes, I think I saw a reference on Facebook. So I am a avocational poet, though retired from Howard University, Howard Divinity to be exact.
Oh, okay. My dad attended and graduated from Howard University back in the 50s.
That was a little bit before I came there.
Just a tad, yes. Okay.
Yes, yes. So anyway, I've been involved with Split This Rock,
Okay.
the group, and so wanted to touch base with this group. It's been a great presentation.
Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. I look forward to hopefully staying in touch.
Yes.
I definitely put my website, but I didn't put my email. Let me put my email for anyone that would like to correspond. And it's here we go. I'm always interested in knowing what others are doing in the poetry circles. So oftentimes there are events that I send out announcements about, not just mine, but events that come to my attention. So I'm always happy to share information as a part of my advocacy. So please, if there's any major poetry event in particular, but arts event in general, I like to make sure that the Arts Council knows about it. And sometimes like I have a veterans group that I share information to. So if there are veterans in this group that, just let me know in the chat that you are a veteran and I can add you to my veterans group. But we want to make sure that we support and connect with one another, however and whenever we can. I think it's appropriate that Saini close us out as the Youth Poet Laureate, and I had not asked her to do 4 poems, but I'm sure that it's not a problem for her. And I would be honored, ever so honored, if she would close out this tribute to Dr. King with a poem that she feels is appropriate. I hope everybody who would like to has included their contact information in the chat, whether you have a website, whether you feel that you are a poet of significance or just somebody that wants to know what poetry is happening. Please put your contact information in the chat. I'm going to, before I sign off, I'm going to save my chat so that I can have everything that has been posted. So if that's my only way of being in touch with you, please don't overlook this opportunity. Okay, so Saini Sise, the 2021 Youth Poet Laureate of Prince George's County, will now close out the 2021 tribute to Dr. King from a poet's point of view. Saini, take it away.
Okay, I want to do a poem that's a favorite for a lot of people. It's titled Water, so I hope you all enjoy it.
Water, okay.
Water is the blackest thing I've come to know, see. Black and water go hand in way back Middle Passage. Water remembers our ancestors who couldn't bear to have a spirit that wasn't free, so they jumped ship, shed the body so the soul could return home. You could not keep them in enslavement. And remembers those who could not survive the journey and were thrown overboard because they never bothered but to leave black bodies floating in the water. And maybe there is something in our spirits that's been dying of thirst ever since. Black is water and thirsty for help, but black bodies always gotta save themselves because everybody else finds it easy to look the other way and leave us to drown. Black boy drinking bottle of Hennessy like a magic potion. All his unacceptable emotions are washed down with the liquor and suppressed for a while longer. Water like 1950. Black body is barred from the swimming pool because black skin is too colorful and not lighter than a paper bag. The white faces laugh like, surely you ain't got no buoyancy in that body, and black skin ain't never come with the right properties to float. Your hair would get messed up anyway because your mama spent 2 hours to hot comb that hair. We have forgotten how much water we really are. Like black child telling black parents that they are gender fluid, and they tell them that's some white people-ish. And if you pray on it enough, then maybe you can dissolve your identity. Water like Flint. How they've been too content to leave black communities with rusty water and lead poison water. How many times we have forgotten and remembered, and how they still can't drink from their tap to this day, but they say race ain't got nothing to do with it. Say, find a better place to live. Like, can't black body become fish and swim upstream with all that magic you say you got? I once heard to withhold someone's rights to water is one of the biggest acts of violence. So tell me how this isn't war. Water, like how black women always gotta be vessel, a support and pouring even when not replenished, and each time we can only rely on each other to fill ourselves back up. Water is the blackest thing I've come to know. Like black refugee coming from overseas for a better life, a fish out of water finding its way in a melting pot. They drink their assimilation hot and steaming water, like how we were never taught how to swim. Have you ever noticed how the body is 70% water and 70% of us don't know how to swim today? Black children are at the highest risk to drown. Water like black depression. We are taught to swallow our sad and keep swimming because there ain't never been no sympathy for black tears. Black can scream and the world will still try to find a way to color our blues mute. We see water and black hair. It is fluid and winding. Now they always want to be on our wave, want to be seasick with slick edges and waves, but never know what it feels like to drown or feel fish out of water. Just want to drink from blackness without inheriting the black blues, only want to dip their feet in the water without becoming it. and always quick to abandon before the osmosis creeps in, but they still say it ain't that hard to swim anymore. And if you want to know a magic trick, just say black people invented water and watch white face turn flesh red with anger because they ain't come up with it first. All I have left to ask is, how isn't water the blackest thing you've ever heard? That's that point.
Wow. Could we unmute everybody and applaud and support, show our appreciation? Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, welcome,
So
welcome.
much.
Love you.
That is awesome. Woo!
Absolutely.
So happy.
Thank you, Saini. Thank you for being our premier guest poet for today. Thank you for allowing us to celebrate Dr. King in such an extraordinary and beautiful way. We love you. We want to find however it is that we can support you throughout your year as Poet Laureate. Please stay in touch. And I hope you have saved the chat as well. Make sure that you make sure that you reach out whenever there is a question or a need that the Office of the Poet Laureate can support you through. And I'll be definitely in touch with Patrick to let him know you knocked it out the park.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Utilize your support.
Thank
Utilize your
you.
support base too
Thank
as
you.
you go
Thank
along.
you, everybody, for joining us today. Be in touch with the Office of the Poet Laureate. Let us know what you'd like to have us to do for you. And hey, don't forget to pick up a pen and write poetry. Thank you so much. Happy celebration for Dr. King and Happy New Year. And just be blessed, everybody. Stay safe, be blessed, take care of one another. We are here to be in fellowship and to celebrate life. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
I just wanted to
Bye-bye.
say
We all
also,
have something to say.
Thank you, Sister Joy. Beautiful program.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.